Hello, and welcome to creating a Microsoft Access table. I'm your host Lee, and I'll be walking you through a step-by-step process to show you how you can create your own Access table. Let's talk a little bit about Access first. Microsoft Access is an app that allows you to create database apps. Data can be loaded into these database apps manually or pulled from Microsoft Excel, text files, Microsoft SQL Server, websites, and many other sources. The user can then create simple and complex reports to review the data or share it with others. Now, if you're familiar with databases, for right now, I just want you to think of them as electronic file cabinets. And in later videos, we'll get into more in-depth detail about databases. Now, Microsoft Access can be purchased as a standalone app or with Microsoft Office Business and Enterprise plans. Now please note Microsoft Access is only available on the PC. Now in the future we'll look at some Mac compatible database apps, but for today we're just going to focus on Microsoft Access. So a little bit about myself. I'm a database application developer with over 20 years developing apps with Microsoft Access. I also have extensive experience with Claris FileMaker, MySQL, Oracle, IBM DB2, SAP Crystal Reports, and SAP ERP. Now, most of my experience has been in the transportation industry, including aviation and trucking, and my employer, AmTransData, only focuses on the transportation industry, including aviation, trucking, railroad, shipping, and pipeline industries. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start Microsoft Access, and then we'll create a new database, and then we'll create a table. So to start Microsoft Access, we'll just come here and we'll go to Start, and we'll just click on Access. And when we get here, we're going to just come down here to New, and then we're going to choose Blank Database. And so then we have to come up with a name of the database. And today's database, the one we're going to create, is going to be aviation related. And for general aviation, and we're going to let's just call it aircraft. Data. It's just a simple name, and then we're going to choose create. There it is. And if you notice, it's already on table here. Let me maximize the screen here. It's already on table. I'm going to actually close this though, and we're going to create this table a different way. Now, one of the things that you need to do before you create any table is to kind of plan out the data that you're going to store in that table. So I'm going to close this here. Not close it, but actually just move it here to the side. Close that other version here, and there. Then we're just going to adjust the screen here so we can see this here. Okay, so we've done this. We've opened the table here, and I was speaking on planning. So what I've done here is I've created just a little worksheet on what I want to store in my table. And as I said, this is going to be a table to like maybe a flight school might use, and they're going to keep track of their aircraft that they have purchased. They're going to keep track of like the serial number. the year, the manufacturer, the tail number of the aircraft, and then other information like the purchase date and price, and the number of hours that was on the aircraft when they purchased it, and then if they sold it, the sold date and the sold price, and then the sold hours. So let's go ahead and create this table. We'll leave this here and hope this be big enough for everyone to see. I'm going to close this for right now. I really don't need to see that. Now to create a table, I'm going to click on the Create tab, and I'm going to create a table in Design View. Now you can create a table using directly in a table. That's how it was when we opened it up. However, I really don't recommend doing that. And since we're trying to start out right now showing you the best practices that I use, I would recommend you do it this way. And we'll talk about why some today and then in other videos. Okay, so we're going to click on Table Design, and then this is going to come up. And this is the design field. If you notice here, what I've done is the first thing we're going to do is we have the field name. I have that here, and the data type, and then the field size. Now some of these aren't going to have field size because they're numeric, and then others, if it's date and time, of course, it's a standardized field size, so you don't have to worry about that. So don't worry about any of the other fields down that you might see. We're just going to work off of this planning sheet here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to put serial number. Now you'll notice that I could have came in and I could have did serial number. It will take it, it will store it. So I don't recommend doing that, and I'm going to tell you why. And it's best that whenever you build a Microsoft Access database or even a FileMaker database, that you make it with the intentions, or that maybe you're going to have to move to another platform. And it's one of the best practices used is not to put spaces in between, or have a space. Now, like I said, Microsoft Access will take it, but I would recommend that you stick to the way that I'm doing this. And like I said, we're not going to put any spaces. So the first thing is, we'll call this serial number, and the data type is going to be short text. If we come down here to this area here, and like I said, don't worry about any of these other ones, just field size. I'm going to change this to 50. Now I could actually leave that as 255, but once again, trying to show you some best practice here, how to save some space. What this is doing is it's actually setting up that field, and we really don't need 250 characters for a serial number. So I'm going to drop that down to 50, and then to kind of like maybe save space and to make the database a little bit cleaner. Next, we're going to create year. Now you're going to get that it's going to say it's a reserved word, but just click OK and then just change it to number. And we're going to leave this as a long integer, and the rest will be okay. We won't change anything else there. Okay, so now we're going to type in the manufacturer's name. Once again, short text, and I'm just going to change that to 50. Next, we have the tail number. Notice I didn't leave a space. Short text, and we'll change that to 50 also. Now, some might wonder why for a year I use a number. One reason I did that is we may want to perform some type of operation, like how many, if you want to know how many years you've had this aircraft, that you have to have it in numeric to perform any type of numerical operation on it. So it has to be in some type of number format. Yes, you could have put date, but then you're going to have the full date. So I recommend just using a number, and then, like I said, in the future. Now you could use text, but if you use text, you will not be able to perform any type of numerical operation on it. Okay, so we finished that one. The next one is going to be date and time. It will be purchase date, and we're going to choose date and time for that. And next is purchase hours, or purchase price, excuse me. And we're going to choose currency here. And we don't have to change anything down. It's going to default to currency. Now, if you live in another country, if you come to drop down here, you'll see there's the euro and fixed and some other ones that you can actually choose. Then we're going to have purchase hours. And for those of you that aren't familiar with aviation, the purchase hours will be kind of like in a car, you have an odometer that keeps track of the mileage. Well, in most aircraft, you have a hour meter that keeps track of the hours that normally the engine has been in operation, or engines. But what that does is that allows you to know, for example, when to perform service and what the service intervals should be, and some of which that are mandated by the FAA. So we'll put that. We'll change this to number, and now notice that it's going to default to integer. Now, if you remember, your integers they're basically whole. However, in some cases, like for hours, you're going to have like a tenth of an hour. So to capture that, we're going to actually change this to double. Okay. So then we have sold date. Back with date and time. And then sold price, currency, and then lastly sold hours. And we'll change that to number and then double. Okay, so let me make sure I got all these. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So I have everything. So now that I've created my table, I'm going to go ahead and save it and name it. So if we click save here, it's going to come up with a table name. Now, notice here that I've called it TBL aircraft. So within a Microsoft Access database, you're going to have different objects. Now, one of them is a table, and that's where we're going to store our data. But we're also going to have we could have queries, and that's what we use to kind of like perform um, if we want to, pull uh, how many records we have, or pull all the records we have with Cessnas, the perform a query on the database tables. Um, the other, we have reports, and we can have forms. But to kind of help me, and just general practice, I always call my tables, I start with TBL. This is the naming convention that I use. But I recommend that if you don't have a naming convention, or that you go out and you can actually Google one, like for applications, and actually come up with, a type of naming convention that you can actually use, that you name your objects. But here, I'm going to call this TBL aircraft. And then I'm going to click OK. And I get this right here. And this is saying this no primary key. I didn't put a primary key. We'll talk about primary keys later. But one thing I'll tell you now that a primary key does is that I could actually choose the serial numbers of primary key. Because if you think about it, chances are pretty much you're not going to have another aircraft with the same serial number. And the system will then keep you from adding another aircraft with that same serial number. But we haven't really talked about primary keys and relationships and things like that happen inside of a database. So I'm not even going to put that there. So we're just going to click no for now. And we're done, and it's saved. If we expand this right here, well, there it is right there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put some data in this table. There's a couple ways we can actually close this now that we've saved it. And we can come here and open it. And if we double click on it, it's going to open it here. And it's ready for us to enter data. Now we can also go back to the design view here, just from under the file. And if you click here, you can either go to the data sheet view or design view. The data sheet view is where we can enter data directly into the table. Okay? Now, so let's come over here. And this is just some data that I put together that we can actually put in. Now notice I just have purchase hours. We're going to assume that all of these aircraft are still owned by this flight school. So we're not going to worry about any sold dates or anything like that. We can add those later, and but it's very simple. I'll show you just how to enter some of that data. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this, and I'm just going to add some of this data. So here's a serial number. These are all fictitious aircraft that I made up. So then we're just going to type in Cessna. Then the tail number. So I must have. So now I'm sitting here looking at it, and I missed the model field. But that's kind of good because we can go back and add that. But did I not have that? Oh, I didn't put that on here. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and add that. But this is a perfect time to see how actually I do that. So actually, I can go back and I'm going to come back to design view. And notice, like I said, I didn't put the model in there. And I'm just going to add model, and we'll make it short text and 50. And I'm just going to pull this up, and it was right after the manufacturer, which makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to save this, and we'll go back to datasheet view. And there it is. So now we continue on with that. And that's going to happen. You may forget to add a field or something, but notice how easily I was able to go back and do that. And then the purchase date and the purchase price. And the purchase hours. And as I said, I don't have a sold date or sold price, but we can, look at those later. And then I'm just going to come back and I'll add another one. So 172. 19 dates a year. Cessna. I just chose all Cessnas here. Kind of hard to go to a flight school and not see a Cessna. And I'm just using a tab key just to move over. And then the hours. And press the enter key. And you go all the way across there, and boom, once it goes to the other line, that record is actually written. We'll do one more. 1969. It's also a Cessna. 182. And November 333. Alpha Hotel. Purchase date. April 2005. Purchase price $76,000. And hours it had 4,523.4. And we are done with that one. So you see how easy it is just to put that data in. If I close this, we might see the. Let's go ahead and see the data a little bit better. And that's it. That you've now created a table, and you can add other fields there. I mean, I could have added things like the number of engines or things, but I wanted just to show you how quick and easy it actually is. And I know some of you already store data like this in Excel sheets or whatever. As we go forward, I think you'll see why adding the data in a database is more efficient, especially when we start looking at some things like reports and other and keeping the data clean and using drop down boxes and forms and reports. You'll probably appreciate it. But if you have any questions, you'll find my contact information below. I do ask that you please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments or any questions, you can also put those below. Thank you very much and have a great day.